there, I'm Belinda Doveston and welcome to the Ching Cafe, and of course it is our first weekly overview for November. If you've not yet done so, please make sure you've gone and taken a look at November's overview, because it's going to give you a great context of the whole month, and as we do these weekly overviews to tie that into the bigger story. As you remember from November's overview, concentrating and focusing our power in one direction and letting go what we don't need is our overall theme. So let's see how this week commencing the 4th of November ties into that picture. But first, let's recap last week. We had 59 dispersing leading to 11 peace, and we were told that our focus should be on putting in the effort to disperse and release the obstacles and get into them and melt that ice and put the effort in of just uncovering the things that are frozen and locked and releasing them with gentle, warm wind energy. So for you, what was last week all about? What did you find was the core focus, the thing that got you to the next part of the week? And for me, I had many such experiences of real difficult obstacles being overcome just with perseverance. And as the week went along, more and more energy was released until this wonderful energy of peace, heaven on earth, things just being in alignment at the right time. And so, how was your week last week? Did you unlock things? Did you discover things from your past that were frozen or lying under the surface? Seeing them in a new light as they came out, as that ice was melted? I do hope some really wonderful releases of energy came for you by focusing your attention on warming and melting that which is locked. Right, so back to the 4th of November for this week. We start the week with Hexagram 6 called conflict. Now, I have promised you that even when there are challenging hexagrams for us to pay attention to, I'm going to find a way of framing it in a way that's truthful to what the hexagram is trying to tell us, but is positive in giving us some real clear guidance on how to deal with the energies of the hexagrams and the changing lines. And this week we might find that things are a little uncomfortable because our focus is hexagram 6, conflict. And it's not looking for conflict. No, quite the opposite. This hexagram says this week we are going to have 1, 2, 3, maybe more conflicts that we have to deal with. And we are having to learn how to deal in this week, in this time space continuum, how to deal with these particular conflicts. It is not a week where we jump in, where angels fear to tread, and exacerbate conflict. Quite the opposite. Our task is exactly the opposite. So conflict is where there is a bashing, a conflict, an opposition, but an argument. So you might find that there's a particular conflict or argument, one or more from different angles, that you are battling and having to overcome this week. Let us have a look at the changing lines because they are very specific and provide some really good examples of ways to think about this conflict. Now, if you look at the hexagram, our changing lines are in position 1, 2, and 3. So there's 3 changing lines, which you know by now means there's a lot going on. And all 3 changing lines are in the bottom trigram. Okay, that means that our inner self, the inner part of the situation, what's inside, namely ourselves, that's where the conflict lies. And in this particular case, the changing lines for the bottom 3 changing lines are all about where we face a conflict with a power that's greater than us. Okay, whereas the top 3 are changing line conflict issues with a power that is lesser. So the most important thing for us to pay attention to this week is that we come into conflict with authority, with maybe a big client, with someone who is influential in your industry, a big competitor. There's a variety of different ways you can think about this. Perhaps this is a relationship, but the person or the entity that you are coming into conflict with has more power than you. And that changes how we play this game. So let's have a look at these 3 changing lines. So you might find that you have one of these changing lines is really pertinent to conflict for you this week. Or you might find all 3 are 3 different types of conflict that come into your week. So the first one in the first position talks about a conflict that's only just started, like a disagreement, and it's still fresh. And the I Ching says, get out of it. Just walk away. Drop it. Just drop it. So you might be tempted to fight for your name or stand up for somebody else or tackle somebody who has done something wrong. It's not about being the hero in the situation. This disagreement or this conflict or differing opinion is new, and all you have to do is just drop it. And there might be some gossip behind the scenes or words exchanged or unhappiness by removing yourself from the situation, but that's what we have to do. Drop it. And of course, our ego loves a good fight. So let's challenge ourselves to be that better, higher person in the situation. Just you turn out of there, turn your back on it and leave the conflict. Okay, don't engage in the argument. You are not going to win. The second changing line says the conflict and what it means, the disagreement, actually impacts a wider community around you. So like you and your family, or you and your business, or you and the greater community that you represent. And this is a conflict you cannot win. It's more advanced than the previous changing line, and you have to get out of there. It's almost like in the midst of the noise, you find a back door and you bolt, okay? Get out of the conflict. Same with changing line 1. You can't win this one. You are outpowered, and you have to accept that your responsibility goes to the community that you lead or your community that depend on you, and you have to get out of this thing, all right? Don't make it your cause to fight the fight, all right? This is not your fight. This week, the energy is not with you. What we have to learn how to deal with in this week is getting out of the conflict. If you're in a situation with an authority, take the route to get out of it and not engage in the warfare that you desperately might want to for whatever reason. Even if the other party is at fault, get out of this. And the third changing line is an interesting one because it talks about avoiding conflict by looking for honor and prestige in a situation. And it tells the story of being in the king's court and doing work for the king. And then your work is done, but what you want to do is bleat louder and louder and louder about what you've done and the work you've done and how important it is and why someone should pay attention. And all that happens is you get a backlash on this process you don't need. So the I Ching says it should be enough for us that we just do the work. Do the work, and even if someone else gets the credit, even if it's unfair, in this week, we're not going to fight this. We're just going to let it go. We're going to do the work and be satisfied that we have contributed what we need to because we've done the work. Very interesting for us this week. We've got these 3 changing lines. They're all inner lines. They're all really strong personal development that we have to go through of saying no to the conflict, even though we might want to fight or stand up for our name or stand up for someone else or it's wrong. We have to just put all that down this week because we are not going to do well out of this. We are in a conflict with an authority, with a superior power, and we just don't have the vuma to make this work this week. Maybe next week is a different story, but this week we don't have it. But there's good news. As we come towards the end of the week, we have Hexagram 13, which is called Fellowship. And this is about a group of people rallying around a single uniting idea, something that binds the community together. So this is a community hexagram. And so what it tells us is somehow through our willingness to not engage in the conflict and to shift path slightly, that engages us in the community we were seeking in the first place. As long as in this community there are equals, and the equals, we all share a strong shared goal or a shared ideal that we are working towards. So the second part of the week, we need to start thinking about this idea of being part of a community of fellowship. What does fellowship mean to you? And what is the ideal that you and this community are part of, that you are working towards? So whether it's your personal life, your professional, your business life, avoid the conflict, turn your back on it because you're not going to win, and seek to form a fellowship, to bind yourself to other people on a shared idea and building that community. That is how we unlock this week, and that is what the I Ching is asking us to pay attention to. Right, well, go and have a look in November if you haven't yet done so. Good luck with the conflict. It'd be great to hear your stories as you go through the week. And of course, we'll see you on Instagram and Facebook for our daily stories. Thank you for being part of this I Ching fellowship, where it's not necessarily about the tool. Yes, that's what we talk about, but it's about learning how to develop clarity and agility, and of course, mastering change. Learning how to be the master and not the slave to ourselves and to the forces of change around us. Have a wonderful week, and I'll see you on the next weekly update.